Hey folks, Doug Blake with Body Design University. Let me ask you a question. How do you know if your clients are making progress with your training program? Right. They can tell you that they feel better, that their clothes are fitting better, for instance, or their pant size, dress size, whatever it is, has gone down, and that's great. That is what we call subjective information. So here's what I want to do in this video today. I want to go over and give you a couple of tips on one of the most valuable things you could ever do with your clients, particularly when they first start training with you. And it's going to be what we here at Body Design, particularly the Body Design Personal Training, call a fitness profile. So I just want to give you a couple of tips on why it is so important. Don't get me wrong, getting that subjective information from your client is great. That's money in the bank. When I can look at my waist and go, whoa, I got to tighten my belt more since I've been training with you. Well, that's fantastic. And for some folks, that's really all they need to get the verification and the confidence that you actually know what you're doing. But here's the deal. The subjective information is great, but it is not a substitute for what? Objective data. And so we call this biometric information, right? So biometric meaning measurements of your body. So if you know what your weight is, you know what your height is, those are biometric variables. Okay, so a fitness profile, and that's what we call it. You can call it whatever you want. But for most of you out there, I want to make sure you understand the importance of doing some type of fitness profile, some type of biometric data collection so that you can get the objective data that you need, not just subjective, by your clients high-fiving you and telling you that they feel good and they've lost stress sizes or whatever, but you need objective data. You need to literally know that the reason why they have lost an inch on their waist or whatever the case is because of objective data. Now, here is the tip. Many of the NCCA accredited organizations, and there are many good ones out there. Body Design University is academically affiliated with both NASM and ACE, and they're going to give you a lot of information or a lot of options when you do this initial biometrics tallying with your client when you first start. And that's great. My tip for you, though, is that you keep it simple, right? And so if you keep it simple, you can always increase the number or the variety of biometric variables that you want to measure. So here is the tip for today in this video. I'm going to show you what we do. This is literally what we do on a daily basis with new clients. And then every 30 days. So, okay, well, maybe that's another tip. Every 30 days, we do a reevaluation. So tip number one is make sure you are doing an evaluation in some way, shape, or form for clients on their biometrics. Generally, it's going to be their body weight. You're going to take some circumference measurements, things like that. And I want to go through them with you and show you how simple it is and how quickly you can actually do a basic biometric data fitness profile information gathering, particularly on the first time that a client comes in. So your first fitness profile. And then again, tip number two, I guess, is every 30 days. Now, look, you could do it every quarter, I guess, but generally 30 days is a good time frame for a couple of reasons. One being that you should be getting physiological changes in your client within a couple of weeks, for sure. Otherwise, you're going to need to kind of rethink or reevaluate your nutrition plan that you're giving them and your exercise plan. So just keep that in mind every 30 days. The other is that it helps with consistency. Monthly is a good way to set time frame elements for your client. So every 30 days, and you would schedule it, of course. So that's the benefit of doing the every 30 days. So there's physiological changes that you want to measure and obviously the time consistency. So here's the point. Let me go ahead and pull this up so you guys can see this. The idea here is that when you're doing a fitness profile, that's what we call it. Again, you can call it whatever you want. You've got to collect some basic data that you can track over the course of time. And over a couple of months, again, even first 30 days, you're going to see some changes occurring in your clients. But there are critical pieces of data that you have to have. Okay. Now, if you go into a doctor's office, they're going to take your, first thing you'll do is you step on a scale, they take your weight, they take your height, and now they can calculate what's called BMI. Now, that's clinical. We don't do BMI. We don't care about BMI because it's essentially useless for us. Not that it's useless. Doctors use it because they're doctors and they want to use that. They're not going to take your body fat. We, however, need to get much more exact about a person's physiology. And that's why what we do is we always take body weight. Okay. So you've got to get a person's body weight. That is critical. The other variable that is critical, because we want to learn what body composition is, BMI doesn't tell us about body composition. In order to get body composition, meaning lean mass and non-lean mass, you have to know body weight and what else? Body fat percent. So body fat. Now, however you're going to measure that, that's up to you. You could do it with skin fold caliper. You could do it with a fairly accurate machine that will give you bioelectrical impedance, right? I was confused there for a second. Body fat percent. Okay, so these two guys right here is what helps you determine body composition. Body composition is what's going to now give your client the ability to say, Doug, you don't know what you're doing because my body comp, I've gotten fatter, or Doug, you're a hero because my body fat went down, my body weight stayed the same or went down, and I know that my body composition has changed. So those are the two critical things. Now, this also helps us determine meal planning, right? So critical, right? So the tip is you've got to do something with your clients. Don't simply start training them. First off, so body weight and body fat, that gives you body composition. Because if you weigh 200 pounds and you are at 10% body fat, well, good for you. Number one, that's pretty tight right there. You have 20 pounds of fat on a 200-pound body. In other words, that tells us pretty exact what the body comp is like, which means you have 180 pounds of lean body mass, which is your muscle tissue, your skeleton, your organs, yada, yada. Okay. Now with body weight and body fat, that's great. Now what we want to do is get a little bit more objective look at what we talked about when your client said, my clothes are fitting differently. Okay. And what is that? That is circumference measurements. Circumference measurements, okay? I'm just going to abbreviate it. Circumference measurements. And normally, again, I'm going to recommend that you keep it simple. You can do, say, their bicep, and you can do it relaxed and flexed, and it shows them they gain a little lean body mass, for instance. So you're going to take maybe the bicep, flexed, relaxed. You can then do their waist measurement, their hip measurement, thigh measurement, and maybe even calf. You don't necessarily have to, but for sure, you're going to take a couple of basic measurements. Again, I'm going to recommend for sure that you do the bicep. Why? Because it's an easy parameter to measure, right? You just circumference and have the person do it relax, and then they flex it. It gives them a good feeling about maybe gaining some lean body mass. Then you can do their waist measurement. Now, again, just keep in mind their waist measurement, their hips, those will change. That's why we do this. That's why we do circumference measurements, is because you can actually see the change. If somebody is changing their body comp and they're losing body fat, that's one of the first places they're going to see is right here. If they gain lean body mass, by the way, they might see it in their thigh. Okay. If they lose body fat, again, these are areas that we know a lot. This is where people are really going to see a lot of change, right? Now, you could also as well do, for instance, the shoulders. Nothing wrong with doing the shoulder, right? You would, and by the way, when you do the shoulder, think about it. You're basically getting that element around from the standpoint of lean body mass. So if I do around the shoulder and my deltoids have gained a little bit more lean body mass, then I'm going to show an increase in that one measurement. Okay. So you get the idea. You can do the bicep, relax, and then flex. Do the shoulder, for instance, waist and hips. Again, changing lean body mass, right? Increasing it, changing body fat, subcutaneous body fat stores, i.e. losing it, right? That's going to show up in those measurements. And that's why we do circumference. One of the reasons why we do the circumference measurements. And then your clients can actually see those changes, right? So important tip. What else do we do? Well, it's also, I mean, don't get me wrong, this is good, right? That's good. But we also want to see some changes in how strong they are and how fit they have become, their cardiorespiratory system. So we'll do say push-ups, right? How many push-ups can you do in say 30 seconds, right? So we'll do push-ups. Now, again, I like to keep it simple. You could additionally add how many squats can you do in 30. I mean, I've seen trainers do this. I've seen very complicated biometric variable data collection scenarios. And again, I'm more interested in seeing upper body changes, but you could if you wanted to. I'm trying to tell you what we do at Body Design Personal Training is about as simple and effective as it's going to get. Now it kind of gives you strength and muscle endurance. And then we want to see their cardiorespiratory system, because remember, you're doing cardiorespiratory training generally with folks, and we want to see their cardiorespiratory systems getting stronger through their time training with us. And for that, we're going to do either treadmill for a minute. You know, you can do a treadmill for 2 minutes. Wow. Okay. My handwriting is a little off. 2 minutes on a treadmill, and then you would measure their heart rate when they got off. In 30 days, think about this. In 30 days, well, I'm sorry, but I got to ask you to think for 1 second while you're watching the video. If your cardiorespiratory system, cardiovascular system gets more fit from day 1 to day 30, okay, and I'm doing the same 2 minute at the same speed on a treadmill, right? Say I get the incline to a specific incline at a specific speed on day 1, and I do the same exact test. What should happen if you're more fit? What should happen to the ending heart rate? Once you get off of the treadmill and I measure your heart rate, what should it be if you have become more fit? Should that heart rate be higher or lower than when I first started 30 days ago? Yeah, it should be lower because my heart, because it's stronger, wouldn't have to work as hard at a higher beats per minute. You get the idea? So again, we use this information, we use this data to, again, I know your clients subjectively are going, damn, I feel good. I'm getting better night's sleep. I wake up a little earlier. My clothes are, fitting differently. I can see changes. That's great. That's subjective data. You got to get the objective data as well. So what is the point? What is the point of all this? Get the objective data, but keep it simple. Okay, keep it simple. When I first started training people, and I trained athletes and I trained high-level fit individuals as well as the average person, not very fit. I used to do so much more than this. I used to do postural assessments. I did a number of different things. I did postural assessments, which took almost 15 minutes to do, just so you know. Then I would do what are known as muscle strength testing. So yeah, I'd put their arms out and I would test muscle strength. I would check the relative strength of their external and internal rotators. And I know you're thinking, ooh, wow, that's pretty cool. Yeah, it's cool, but it was irrelevant. It didn't do anything. It was a waste of time for the average person. From a corrective exercise standpoint, if that's what you're doing, yeah, maybe that's important. I want you to be efficient. When you're training your clients, you need to be efficient and you need to give them data that is helpful. Okay. So a push-up and knowing how many push-ups they can do in 30 seconds is very valuable data. Don't do pull-ups. The average client can't even do one pull-up. Okay. Do something that actually your clients can do. Take their circumference measurements. Why? Because then along with the subjective feeling of, you know, being lighter and all this other stuff and their clothes fitting differently, they can see the objective data. So that is the tip. That is the tip. Look, there's a little bit more to it than this, and I would love to hear your comments on this. But first, okay, let's circle it back around. First and foremost, you've got to do something like a fitness profile for your initial intake, client intake. So do an initial evaluation that gives you this biometric data, biometric information. And then the second part of that tip is do it every 30 days. Please keep in mind that consistency is critical. Some of your clients, they will really rely on this. Others might not be that big of a deal for them, but it should be a big deal for you because this gives you some feedback. Just keep that in mind. You evaluate day one, and then you're going to get feedback. By the way, if this doesn't come out good, if this is like they gained 3 pounds of body fat, maybe that, by the way, maybe they don't think that's a big deal, but you should. That means something's wrong. If people are gaining body fat after 30 days of training with you, you need to rethink the nutritional component of it, and for sure the training component of it as well. If individuals are not attaining more push-ups in 30 seconds than they did on day one after 30, 60, 90 days, you need to rethink what you're doing from a training perspective. Okay. So again, keep it simple. It doesn't mean that you can't add other variables to measure. Absolutely. I know trainers, they do stretching, they do a number of different things. They do circumference measurements all over, right? They do multiple, way more circumference measurements than this. I got no issue with that. I just try to keep it as simple as possible. That's my tip for you. Remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel, hit the notification bell so you know each week when these videos are coming out. Leave your comments below so that we can help and assist you. For those of you that are doing your training both in person and online, for instance, this is critical data. By the way, for those of you that are doing online training, please don't think that this is no longer relevant. Oh, no. What you tell your clients is you make sure, especially if you're doing like a high ticket item and you're actually having like a Zoom call with them every week. No, you tell them they need to go somewhere and get some of this information taken care of so they can send it back to you. And by the way, the two single most important variables were what? If you had no choice, you couldn't do anything else. Body weight, body fat percentage, so you get body composition. Okay, so just keep that in mind. Again, the goal here is to help you with these pro tips, to help you to be an industry leading personal trainer. That is the goal. Provide the greatest level of service that you can provide. And let's get some results for folks so that they can live a lifestyle of health and wellness. It's always a pleasure to be with you. Have a great weekend, and we'll see you next week. Thanks.